Okay, so Joseph McCarthy now, he started this big craze making these accusations that you have people that are working in the State Department and they are communists. And so McCarthy gets this big craze going. And again, once he gets a little taste of what it's like to be the leader behind this hunt for disloyal, un-American people, he just keeps going on and on and on with it. And so here's a video that kind of portrays just exactly how bad things got with McCarthy.
The early 1950s saw the increase in anti-communist sentiment in America, which culminated in a Red Scare in which McCarthyism exploded and led to the loss of jobs and a huge toll on the lives of individuals, especially those in the entertainment industry. With the end of World War II in 1945 and the beginning of Truman's presidency due to Roosevelt's death that same year, the U.S. saw increased tensions with the Soviet Union and a growing threat of communist expansion.
Well, the country was was just going crazy anti-communist. So instead of anti-Nazi, all of the nuts in the country became anti-communist.
This led to Kennan's X article, in which he anonymously wrote that the main element of any United States policy towards the Soviet Union must be that of the long term, patient but firm and vigilant containment of Russian expansion tendencies to limit Soviet pressure against the free institutions of the Western world. As the nuclear arms race between the United States and the Soviet Union continued, communist fears grew in the U.S. As a result, in 1945, the House Un-American Activities Committee, known as HUAC in the House of Representatives, became a permanent committee with unique subpoena powers dedicated to the investigation of suspected threats to the form of government guaranteed by our Constitution. In 1947, the first wave of hearings occurred, and they included the Hollywood 10, members of the motion picture industry who were convicted and blacklisted by the industry after refusing to answer some of the committee's questions. Simultaneously, the global fight against communism was intensifying as the Korean War began in 1950, when the UN took action to contain communism in North Korea from spreading to South Korea. America continued to be marked by the fear of communism on the home front, and the Red Scare was escalating as Senator Joseph McCarthy worked separately from HUAC to become the leading face of communist aversion in America. The term McCarthyism, coined in 1950 by Washington Post cartoonist Herbert Bloch, represented the anti-communists with hunts that occurred as McCarthy was accusing and defaming many government leaders for being communist sympathizers. Furthermore, he accused some of the most prominent entertainers of the era, such as Lucille Ball, Orson Welles, Dalton Trumbo, Orson Bean, and Charlie Chaplin. In 1950, McCarthy started to accuse the creative industry in Hollywood of being tied to communism. Those accused were brought in front of McCarthy on trial. When called into trial, the accused alleged communists would be asked a series of unfair questions like,
Have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? Are you a member of the Communist Party? Are you a member of the Communist Party?
The trials to try to suss out who had communist backgrounds were totally unfair. You know, I mean, especially in a country where we're made to believe that we're free to believe whatever we want.
the accusations used against them were exaggerated, and the accused was sometimes not able to answer.
It's unfortunate and tragic that I have to teach this committee the basic principles of Americanism. That's the question.
Once convicted, the term was called being blacklisted. This led to many writers, actors, directors, and other creative developers to move out of the USA to other countries in search of work. Some wrote under pen names.
A lot of people paid dearly. A lot of people went into kind of hiding with their work, found different names to work under. A lot of people got credit for other people's material because if they were on the blacklist, they couldn't submit scripts. And so it was not a great time.
But others, like Herbert Biberman, who was one of the Hollywood 10, started to film projects with independent companies. Besides many workers not being able to find a job, marriages fell apart, and in some cases, suicide. This loss of writers to the blacklist affected the movie industry because production companies had to resort to other works, like books and plays, to make into movies. For example, A Streetcar Named Desire and East of Eden. The McCarthyism era and accusations also ruined social ties, as friends turned on friends in order to save their jobs and careers.
Kazan gave names. They were not respected by the country at large for what they did, but they got off scot-free. They didn't care.
This act ruined the relationship between Kazan and Arthur Miller, in addition to the majority of the industry despising Kazan for naming names.
Okay, so you can see that McCarthy's, witch hunt just got out of control. Well, eventually McCarthy
Everything you were about to see actually
goes as
happened. 8
far
hours a day
as
for 36 days. A special Senate subcommittee held televised hearings known as
okay, so you can see that McCarthy's witch hunt just spun out of control. Well, eventually McCarthy gets so desperate that he starts accusing members of the military of being communists and communist sympathizers. And so one day during they become known as the Army McCarthy hearings, because McCarthy has accused members of the U.S. Army of being communists. And so McCarthy has this soldier up on the stand in front of the Senate, and McCarthy's asking all these questions, and like the one you saw in the video, are you or have you ever been a member of a communist party? And the soldier says no, and McCarthy's not getting the answers that he's hoping to get, and he's becoming very frustrated with the whole situation. And he eventually just kind of loses it, just kind of totally wigs out on this soldier. And what ends up happening is that it's realized that McCarthy is a fraud. The large majority of what he's been saying all along, he's just been making it up, and it's kind of like he got caught up in his own frenzy, and once it got started, he just didn't know how to stop it, and so he just continued right on with it. And the worst part of it all is there are a lot of innocent people who had very good careers, and these careers were absolutely ruined because of McCarthy. Eventually, McCarthy, when he's found out to be a fraud, he is what is called censured by Congress. If you do something wrong and you're a member of Congress, there's 2 forms of punishment. One is expulsion, which means you're kicked out. The other one is censure. And really, all censure is the person who's accused of the wrongdoing has to stand up in front of Congress as what they've done wrong is read, and then the rest of Congress gets to move up to the podium one by one and tell the accused person how disappointed, unhappy, upset they are with the actions of this person. And the thing is, you have all these members of Congress, and you can only say the same thing differently so many times until it all just starts to become very redundant and repetitive. And it's really nothing more than a glorified slap on the wrist. And that's all McCarthy really received. And and again, he ruined totally ruin the very successful careers of a large number of people. And all this guy gets is just a little slap on the wrist. Okay, next we have what's called the McCarran Internal Security Act. And basically, this is a really feeble attempt. It says that all communist and communist front organizations had to register. Register with who? Register with the government. Well, really, if you are a true, legit communist organization, do you really think that you are going to register with the United States government? Because you know that once you do that, you are going to become the focal point of anything associated with communism in this country whatsoever. And even stuff that isn't actually related to communism is going to be geared your way. People are going to make up stuff to try to implicate you and your links to communism. So like it says, it has no power. It was ignored. It was shot down in the courts. Eventually, Truman's going to veto the idea. Well, he did veto it. Congress did an override of his veto, and eventually the Supreme Court steps in, says it's very ineffective, and it is shut down. So these are your notes for Chapter 21, Section 3.